What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel today. Now, I do apologize for the delay. It seems like I am having some huge technical difficulties this morning. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but I'm sure in case any of you guys are content creators, you know the beauty of live streaming and what fun that it can be. Now, in case you haven't been here before, thank you so much for being here. What I typically do here during the week is I do these 1 hour live streams where I go in and talk about just different things happening in movies and things just like that. That's what I do here on this morning movie chat. And today I actually had something that I really wanted to talk about here. I seen there was a one of the channels I follow here recently. I am actually a Patreon supporter of them. It's a Den of Nerds. You guys should definitely check them out if you haven't ever been over to their channel. Josh over there runs a pretty tight ship. Got a pretty good channel. I really have absolutely no complaints about that channel. I've been a Patreon supporter for several months of them, and I'm telling you, they're pretty good and informative about a lot of the things that they talk about on that show. Now, I'm not sure if you all got a chance here. I did have to actually reset the stream and everything on here and to get all of that set up. But if you go and check down in the description, I put a link in there that I was asking people about representation in films, and as we know, this has really been at the forefront of a lot of conversations. It seems like lately, more and more people tend to be worried about this subject more now than ever. It seems like, and I think a lot of that perception just comes from. I think a lot of it just comes from us. Maybe we got social media now, and it seems like there's just always so many different things that go into that. That social media itself actually perpetuates. It makes us feel, because we're all closer together now. So it makes it feel. I don't know. I guess you could say it makes us feel like we're closer together, and things are more in our face. So things, when it comes down to it, a lot of these things seem a little more prevalent these days than they ever used to before. And I guess there are some times when that could be a good thing, and there are some times when that could be a bad thing. We see, like I said, we see here, all just everything happens so fast nowadays, because the flow of the information, it's all out there for us to just reach out and grab, and it's just that instantaneous. Um and so a lot of people, I see it all the time on these different just like different things and everything, like Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Everybody acts like the sky is falling, when the sky's been there all along. It hasn't fallen yet. But there are, like I said, a lot of these issues that have seemed to be a bigger issue nowadays and have come more to the forefront of conversations and just different things like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the one thing I wanted to talk about today is representation in movies and films. Now, I'm sure many of us, have seen a lot of this. Whether you agree with it or not, see this going on our timelines. Whether that's here on, whether that's like here on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook or even Twitter. And there's a lot of people that feel a lot differently just about everything out there. Like I said, it's more prevalent, it's more in our faces now. It seems like studios and movies, directors, writers, and all these things seem to be more willing nowadays than ever to push it in our faces a little bit more. And honestly, in a lot of cases, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good thing to see diverse casts of people out there in the world. There, obviously, any of us could, you could walk out your front door at any single time and notice just how many different people there are out there I mean, just in your local community. I don't care where you live. There's, you're gonna have white people, you're gonna have black people, you're gonna have Mexicans, you're gonna have, just all, Chinese, Japanese, just all these different walks of life. So naturally, like I said, people want to see more of that in movies in Hollywood and things like that. And the one thing that I think actually seems to be, I don't know, maybe, how would you say, more important than the fact that people are actually getting representation, is maybe the fact that they're actually that they're represented accurately. Now, I'm not for sure about you guys, but I think that when it comes down to it, that's kind of a big deal to make sure that we're portraying people on screen accurately. And of course, when it comes down to things like Hollywood and stuff like that, it's always a little bit convoluted. Anything is convoluted when you get in, like, I guess you could say, the public space. When we're talking about like a Facebook, like a YouTube, like a Twitter, or even in the movies. It's just the scope goes from like your huge world to it comes down to to this just like what's on your screen. Okay. And so, some people make things more obvious than others. Some people do not. I think a lot of it comes down to just writing good stories. Ultimately, I think most of us, when it comes down to movies, that's something that we all want to see. Drunk 3PO, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. I apologize. This stream was, man, it's about 40 minutes late. I was having some technical difficulties with my ingester. And I think, honestly, I think it was just through YouTube, through me having this thing set up and all of that different stuff. I had to just go through and completely recreate the stream. So I think that's probably what it was more than anything, not wanting to work together here. But again, thank you all so much for being here. And yeah, like I said, the representation in movies, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of us, when it comes down to it, is I think most of us want it done right, and I think that it's important that it's done right. Not only with great storytelling, but also great writing. We've seen, like in some of these movies where studios and things like that have actually, been like where they're actually taking people into consideration because of maybe their race or anything like that, and saying, okay, like we want somebody Hispanic for this role. Like if you go on to the Star Wars Rogue One, the Rogue One bonus features, they actually talk about the gentleman that's in that movie. I believe is his name Diego Luna. I believe I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking Gabriel Luna. I don't know. I doubt it, but I can't remember. But the gentleman that's in that movie, you can go through on the special features. They actually pretty much say that they were casting for diversity for the film. Like they were looking for somebody like very specific like that. And which is kind of funny, like I don't think that it was necessarily such a big deal in a movie like that, because we were getting new characters that we hadn't really met or anything before. And, granted, I'm not nerdy enough into the Star Wars lore that I know if these characters are absolutely new or if they are just, basically changes on pre-existing characters. But, I honestly don't remember hearing a whole lot of outrage about those kinds of things when that movie came out. And I think that's what a lot of people seem to be getting more upset about these days. As we've seen in the news, we've seen the just like the outcries, just people being upset, like the 007 going to be a female. And we obviously, there was all the backlash over Ghostbusters, pick up the call or make the call, or who you gonna call, or whatever, that that thing that happened in 2016, which again, for me, I don't think I've ever really talked about Ghostbusters 2016 here on my channel much, but I'll tell you, like, I thought the movie, it was okay, not for a Ghostbusters movie, but like the movie itself, like if they hadn't called it Ghostbusters, I would have probably thought it was okay. It was a pretty decent movie, but like for a Ghostbusters movie, ruining, I mean, like, and that's what a lot of people say, was they kind of ruined the lore and the franchise and things like that. And and I've talked about this on the channel plenty as well, where it seems like the bigger thing is just in the way that it's done. Like they were just trying to push out new stuff to bring in new stuff. And I've talked about that a lot here before, is you don't have to push out the old to bring in the new. You don't have to turn away your old fans to bring in new fans. You just got to find good and creative ways to do it. And there was a lot of controversy surrounding that Ghostbusters film, just the same as there has been a lot of controversy surrounding Star Wars The Force Awakens. There was a little bit around there, come on, let's admit it, there was. And I got to tell you, like, for me, that was one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen in the theaters, especially in 3D. It's the best 3D movie I've ever seen, hands down. And I actually liked The Force Awakens. I thought it was a pretty good one. Now, The Last Jedi is a little bit different. There's a lot of divide with that movie, and a lot of people have different feelings about that movie. And ultimately, ultimately what people more have a problem with when it comes to a lot of like these types of movies is what writers are doing to our classic characters and things like that and changing them up. Like, a lot of people talk about Luke's character in there, and how they pretty much desecrated his whole history. Like they did him a huge disservice. And then obviously people talk about Ray and just these different kinds of things. And that's perfectly fine. These are conversations that we need to have. Conversations that we need to have to move the things forward. And I think what happens a lot of times is, whether no matter what way you feel about the subject, is you start to put your arm out and stop people, and you don't want to hear what they have to say because you feel the way you feel no matter what. Okay. Now the thing is that's really not the way we go and we make the change of things. We've got to be open. I think everything positive that has probably come in our world, whether positive or negative, really, when major change happens, it comes through compromise, and that's all of us agreeing, like, okay, like, we are in an imperfect world. And I think there's, like, a lot of us have emotional attachments to these franchises and these characters that we grew up with, that we love. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with people having the feelings that they have about them. But the one important thing, Patriarch of the Sith, welcome to the stream. There are only two things left in the MCU that I wanted to see, and that's Black Widow and Shang-Chi. It sounds like they don't want my money. And you know what? And that's what I want to get into right now is, obviously we could see recently the writer of Black Widow, the Black Widow movie, Jack Palance. I can't remember. I'm just kidding. It wasn't Jack Palance. Is Jack Palance even still alive? He should be, man. He's an excellent actor, but I don't know. Did he pass away? I think I would have heard about that when I remembered that, because that's a major one. I don't know. But anyway, this writer for the Black Widow movie went out there, saying like, she's gonna, basically she's it didn't exactly say that in a review, but like there's an agenda in there, and she's not going to listen to the haters and all that kinds of stuff. And you know what? That's actually wrong. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you do write an agenda into your movie or something. The thing is, you need to realize, you need to look at the fans, and you need to hear what they're saying. You need to hear what they're saying, because they're the people spending the money on your movie. Okay. And that doesn't mean you have to cater to them. That doesn't mean that you have to cater to them. That just has to let you know that if people aren't going to watch your movie, you know why. If people are going to watch your movie, and you know why. And that's the same thing I was talking a while back on one of my streams the other day, and even in one of my reviews, is Lee Williams, who works for Marvel Comics. She also writes stories like the Deja Thoris and Barbarella series on Dynamite Comics, and she actually does other things as well. She's actually got a new book on Marvel getting ready to release this week. It was Gwenpool, and I'm not sure if I wasn't going to read Gwenpool anything, but I seen Lee Williams was writing it, and I'm like, oh man, I almost feel like I'm forced to have to read it so I can do a review on it. You know what I mean? And if that's something you guys would like, if you guys would like to see me do a review on that Gwenpool issue, you know what? Go down in the description. I'm pretty sure I put it in the description here. There's a link to my Patreon account where you could go down there and support me on Patreon. Support for $1, $5, $10, however much you want to. It's a monthly thing, but that will help me. Like, be able to afford some of these things that I don't really want to read, but I kind of do, for you guys, so I can let you guys know what exactly is going on in these things. But like I said, when it comes to Lee Williams, I know what kind of writing she does already, just from seeing the work that she's done. I can see that she has messages, and some of them are very on the nose. I wouldn't necessarily say that she's pushing like an agenda, but she is definitely putting a bias in all of her stories. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. You're the writer, feel free to do what you want. But no, like I said the other day, know that if people are reading it, chances are that's probably why they're reading it. And if they aren't, that's why they're not reading it. And that's the same thing that it comes down into these movies. Now, like I said, down in the description of this same video as well is a link to a video done by the Asian Boss. And I've never followed this channel before, but like I was saying earlier in the beginning of the stream, this actually got brought to my attention by Josh over at the Den of Nerds, and I actually happen to be a Patreon supporter of theirs, and that's where I found out about this video. He posted it there for the Patreon supporters, because it was something that he had been talking about in one of his live streams or streams there that he does for the Patreon supporters. And you know what, if you guys aren't a Patreon supporter of the Den of Nerds, you guys should go check it out. Josh has been been doing for the past couple months, man. I've been doing some really excellent videos on there for the Patreon supporters. And if you are a YouTube content creator, I would highly suggest you go spending the dollar to be a Patreon supporter of theirs, just for a couple of the videos that he's done recently, where he's talking about YouTube, the algorithm, and if you're trying to grow a channel, some of the things you have to do, some of the things you have to do out there to grow a channel. And if you're here, a lot of that comes down to clickbaiting. You have to get people to click on your videos. There's nothing wrong with clickbaiting. That's kind of the name of the game. It's when you do bad clickbaiting, where you don't fulfill what's going on in, like, either your thumbnail or the description or the title of your video. Okay. Other than that, we're here to clickbait. We got to get people to click on our videos. And you guys can see, if you follow me here on the channel, I'm not really all about that. I'm just trying to build an audience of solid supporters who come in and want to talk about these movies, music, and even comic books and things like that. So, like I said, there is this video down there done by the Asian Boss, where he's actually he's in China, talking to some of the locals there, some of the ladies, some of the gentlemen there, talking about the new Shang-Chi movie getting ready to come out. And what this actually had to do with how this was brought to my attention was Josh over at the Den of Nerds was talking about the Star Wars movie and, like, The Last Jedi and things like that, how some of the people were portrayed, how it wasn't a big hit in China, where some of the people didn't like the character of Rose and how she looked, and just the way they were represented and things like that. And and I think that's something important when it comes down to these movies, is making sure that if we're going to do them, can we represent people correctly? At least I think that's something that people want, and I think it's something that's very important. And that doesn't just matter when it comes to like your maybe necessarily your race or your nationality or things like that. It actually comes down to even things like conditions you may have. Like I said, I reached out to some of my Twitter followers, and before I even really get into a lot of this conversation about what happened here on the Asian Bosses channel, is I put out there on Twitter, because of this thing where he was going in. Let me just tell you about the video. He was in China asking people about the Shang-Chi film and what they thought about the actor that was cast to play Shang-Chi, which is a Chinese superhero. They were looking at the pictures, and they're like, ooh, like, a lot of them are like, he's not very representative of us. He looks more Americanized. He looks more Americanized. They were noticing, like his body, and they weren't being shameful. They weren't body shaming or look shaming or anything like that. Some of them, a couple of them seen him, and they're kind of like, nah, I don't, he's not necessarily attractive to me. And they're just looking, and they weren't being mean about picking apart his looks or anything like that. But one of the things they mentioned was, he doesn't have the traditional Chinese look, and he was very muscular, like built, like very he looked overly physiqued. And that's something, like, if you go and look at Bruce Lee, how he was. He was a slim dude, and he was a small guy. He had all his Chinese features. And he wasn't necessarily too Americanized, I guess you could say. But if you go back and look at him, he's just his frame, his build. I mean, he was he was ripped, but he wasn't, like, hugely muscular. He didn't have bulging biceps and, like, huge legs or anything like that. He was built, kind of like more like people like I am, like a cyclist. I mean, he's just a small, tiny dude that had a lot of power. He had a lot of power behind his punches, his kicks, and just things like that. And so they're talking to these people, and they're talking, like, he's like, so what do you think about the actor? Like, he's not very representative of us. It's just, like, I think they could do a lot better. And which is a great criticism. Because then he asked him, like, who do you think would be a great casting choice for this movie? And they some of the people listed off some different Chinese actors, and they showed them there on screen, where you could see, like, okay, and you could see the difference in looks. They did look I guess a little more of Chinese heritage. They had a little more of the features there, and that's not to say that the gentleman being cast isn't full Chinese or anything like that. But maybe we all have different features. You know what I mean? And if you guys know me, I actually like odd features in people. I don't know. To me, I just like it. Like, you see how good looking I am. See that face? Yeah, like that's like I'm like okay, it's all right looking. But I like odd features. When people have disproportionate maybe have bigger eyes, or maybe a different shaped nose, or your cheekbones, or your jawbone, or just anything like that. Just different features. Some of these features that make us all unique. And I think that's something that they were noticing in this gentleman that's being cast as Shang-Chi. And like I said, they weren't mean about their basis for the character. The thing is they want accurate representation when it comes down to these things. And I think that's something that's very important. You know why? Because it kind of plays into stereotypes and like racial stereotypes and things like that. When we see something, um, as I've never left America. Okay, now I've grown up around a very diverse group of people in my whole life. Like where I grew up at was it was in the Midwest, and I grew up at, there was there was a big Mexican population. There was obviously a bunch of white people, and just different things like that. There was a pretty good mix of people. There wasn't a whole lot of black people where I grew up at, but there was some. I mean, it wasn't like there was none. Um, and there was just a bunch of different walks of races. And actually, where I grew up at now, they have I believe is it Somalians? I think they said that have moved into the area as well. And and that's really nothing unusual, because where I grew up at, there is a beef packing plant there. Oh man, no, it's a Tyson. It's Tyson. I don't think they do beef. I don't know, maybe they do. But so there is usually typically a lot of immigrants and just foreigners and just things like that there. They move there, get jobs and things like that. It's not a high cost of living, and the job there out at that place, it pays pretty good. And the thing is I think it's important that we get not just we, but everybody gets like the more accurate representation when it comes to these Hollywood films. And I think it's something they probably need to look into a little more, like the people who are producing this Shang-Chi movie, and saying, maybe going out there and hitting the streets, or just doing polls of people who are out there, average audience members and things like that, about what they think when it comes to these types of things, because I think it could really help settle a lot of this down. Because like I said, if they, China's a big market when it comes to movies. If they're seeing Chinese representation on screen, they want it to be more accurate. They don't want to be portrayed not necessarily in a negative way, but in a stereotypical way, which I think is important, because those stereotypes kind of play into how everybody views and perceives these people. Plain and simple, it is. And I don't care who you are, if you're used to seeing like this stereotypical thing on screen all the time, and it's somebody you've never been exposed to, chances are you think like, oh, okay, well that's just how it is. It's just how this culture of people are, and that's not always necessarily the truth. So I think that it is highly important for people to be represented on screen accurately in these types of ways. But let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments below, and I'm going to go over here the tweet that I sent out, and to the people who actually went ahead and read it and replied. But what I put here was representation is nothing new in films. It's not. There's always been representation in films. Just how it's done and how accurately it's done is the questionable part. There has always been diverse casting in Hollywood. However, it does seem to be at the forefront these days. How important do you think it is that people be represented accurately? Your honest feedback is greatly appreciated. And I did get several replies here. I've got Angry Toy Box here, who replied, "If it is for the character and the story, I am all for it. If it is to get your virtue, if it is to get your virtue signal over 9,000, I am not." Okay, and I get that. I totally get what he's saying there, because we've seen plenty of times here in recent history where that's you could easily call it virtue signaling, what some of these stars or some of these studios are doing. And that's not necessarily a good thing. You know what I mean? You don't want to be doing that, because if you're wanting true fans, you need to do it through building through building an actual solid fan base, not just catering to certain people, because you want more people to see it. You want more people to see it, to understand it, to like it, and things like that. And so I think a lot of times it comes down to not beating people over the head with whatever it is that you're trying to say or trying to do within the confines and the frame of your movie. So I definitely think I think he's right. And if it's for the character and for the story, It's all good. Now the thing is how, how do you feel when it comes to changing, some of these characters and things in movies? Race changes, gender swaps, like I said, it's a big thing these days. And I don't think necessarily that it's always just for representation. I think there are times when they are just trying to cast the best person for their role. I do. I'm not saying it's that way necessarily. And, maybe at times they are looking like, we need a more diverse cast. Hey, it's the studios making the thing. I'm not the producer. I'm not the one putting in the money. I'm just going to watch the movie. For me, I just hope for a good movie, no matter who they cast in the role, okay? But I do, Angry Toy Box, I do understand your reply. I totally get that. Because in the end, it comes down to pandering, and that's not exactly how you should be doing. I mean, you can cater to people without having to pander to them. That's I think that's the huge thing. The weekly rant. Pretty good guy here. I know. I'm not sure. I don't actually personally know the Angry Toy Box, but the Weekly Rant, I do know this gentleman. He's a pretty cool guy. And he says the Weekly Rant says being represented accurately is very important. There is a push, and it feels like it's going crazy through the roof. But that's only the underrepresented demographics. But that's only so the underrepresented demographics can reach equal footing. Stories haven't been affected because of a character. Stories haven't been affected because a character has been casted differently. The Thor films weren't changed because Heimdall and Valkyrie looked different to how they were in the comics. Both Felix Leiter and Money Penny were changed in the Craig Bond films. That didn't affect the stories. Didn't change the story, but they changed the characters because they were too lazy to create new characters for this all important representation. Introducing new characters into established stories changes the stories. So in the example I gave, it isn't lazy, it's opportunity. And he says every person is different. Too many people stuck on seeing characters that are like them. I don't care how accurate fictional characters are represented, just write a good story for what you're putting out there. Where is the lonely representation? Oh, it's because the lonely banter actually replied. Okay, yeah, that was the lonely banter that replied. Didn't change the story, but they changed the characters because they were too lazy to create new characters for this all important representation. Yeah, and that's the thing is, everybody's going to feel different when it comes down to these types of things. Now, overall, I mean, there's nothing. In a lot of cases, I don't see if it doesn't inherently change the story. I don't see a huge problem with it. But like Heimdall, or even Valkyrie, it didn't change the story. It just kind of changes the lore. And one of the guys I highly respect here on YouTube is Eric July Young Ripa, and he talks a lot about when it comes down to like the Valkyrie character or even Heimdall, is the fact that these characters come from Norse mythology, and that's what they are, and typically in that case they would be white. And I totally get that argument. I totally see it, and I actually really highly agree with that. And at the same time, I always kind of feel like when we're talking about something like, and not just for the mere fact that it's fictional, but because it takes place in Asgard. It's like a whole different like planet. It's a whole other different realm. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like at some point there would probably be different races out there and a little bit more diversity of the people there. And but again, that's just, is that me making excuses? I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of the same as, I feel like, here in the world, here in the galaxy, here in this universe, we are humans. We don't know that there's other life forms out there, Area 51. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. But I do think that there are other life forms out there, alien life forms out there. Does that mean they look the same as us? No. Does it mean they look different and all weird like we portray them in movies? No. For all we know, they might look just like us, you know. And um and so, yeah, I mean, I get the argument that Asgard, would typically be white people, but at the same time, I mean, like if we were talking about the real world, would it be? I mean, I don't know, because you can't. Most of the, even most of these countries that you walk into, you see different races of people. But again, that is because people have migrated there. I doubt the people of Asgard, are going to be just open to letting a whole bunch of humans in there, or a whole bunch of other alien life forms come and populate Asgard. You know, that's their sacred home and everything like that. Which brings up a whole other kind of like political debate that we could get into. And I'm not here to get into politics or anything like that. But I do think that there's probably some leeway there. So when somebody gets upset about like a character like a Heimdall or anything being or Valkyrie being swapped, I get it. I mean, I totally get that. And the thing is there's probably plenty of great actors out there who could have been cast to play Heimdall and Valkyrie and any of these other people that they have actually race swapped in these kinds of cases. But again, like, is it something that's of high importance? I mean, like Heimdall doesn't really play like a huge role in the MCU so far. I mean, he's played a role, yeah. I mean, he's still Heimdall like he was in the comic books, and he's an important character. But I think overall, over the overarching story that they've done in the MCU, he hasn't really played a major role except for like in Thor Ragnarok, and so like I do get it. When it comes down to the fictional characters now, again, it does come down to, you know, how are they being represented and what character is it? Like, if we're talking about a Spider-Man, there's absolutely no reason to change the Peter Parker Spider-Man and race change him or gender swap him at all, because they've already done that in the comics. We have Miles Morales Spider-Man, we've got Spider-Gwen, we've got Spider-Woman, we've got, you know, just all these different versions of Spider-Man out there. So there's absolutely no reason to ever have to do that with the Peter Parker character. They've already done that. They've already done that in the source material, in the comics. And no, not a lot of people are happy about it, even over that. Which kind of brings me to, you know, something else, you know, I wanted to touch on really quick. People were talking about, people have been talking a lot lately about those comments that Taika Waititi made on Twitter, where he was talking about, I'll ruin your mythos in a second. Well, it kind of makes me wonder what he means by that, because there could be like some double meaning there. Okay, he'll ruin your mythos in a second. Well, not forget, for one, they already did the Mighty Thor in the comics, right? Okay, I'm not trying to argue anything here, other than they did that in the comics already. So there's the mythos that they already set that's been, you know, some people would say has been ruined, right? Okay, by when they brought in Jane Foster being Thor, taking up the mantle of Thor. The mantle of Thor, not the name. That's the name, right? Anyway, the point being is they actually done that in the comic books already, and maybe he's just saying, you know, maybe that's the mythos he's talking about, is maybe he'll ruin that mythos that happened in the comics. You know, maybe he's being facetious and just trying to get a reaction out of people, which of course he's trying to do in the first place. We all know that. I mean, let's at least admit to that. I don't care what side of the fence you're on, whether you're on the pro Jane Foster Thor thing or the anti Jane Foster thing. Is he's doing this Sir controversy, and it could have double meaning, and maybe and all of that stuff. He's saying it for a reaction in the end. We all know that, okay? He's just trying to ruffle some feathers, but again, you know, I think it still comes down to, he said he'll ruin your mythos in a second. It's already in the mythos, so maybe he's saying he'll ruin that, which would be a good thing, right? Wouldn't we want that ruined? I don't know. I could be wrong, but again, I'm not gonna go out there and say that he might be that on it. I guess you could say that on it about it. But again, and I got some of these things confused here because Lonely Banter and the Weekly Rant have the same color schemes on their things. But Lonely Banter says every person is different. Too many people stuck on seeing characters that are like them. I don't care how accurate fictional characters are represented. Just write a good story for what you are putting out there. And where's the lonely representation? And that's part of that's part of the thing too. I think it's important that people are represented accurately. And the thing, what he's saying there about too many people being stuck on characters that look like them, I think is very important, because that's just one thing. Like when I was growing up, you know, I'm a mix of different races. There's nobody out there representing me. You know what I'm saying? You know, a lot of people would look at me and say, "Oh, that's just some white boy." You know, some dude the other day out on the road, he got it right in his own ignorant way. You know, he's like, "Yeah, whatever, you effing spick," and I'm just like, like, you don't even know me, dude, but all right, I guess. Hey, what can I say? All right. And that's the thing is, too many people are stuck on that. Like, oh, I've got to see somebody that looks like me and is exactly like me on screen for me to feel good about myself. That's just not right. That's not how life is. I've gone through life without people that look just like me on screen being motivational. Like, again, I've talked about this the other day. Is when I see some of these people out there, when I see people, like, look at your idols and things like that. Look at your heroes. I don't look like me. One of the people I look up to. He's Lance Armstrong. Yeah, everybody knows Lance Armstrong. He's a doper, right? He's a cheater. Well, the thing is, if you know the world of cycling and performance enhancing drugs and all these things, a lot of these people, I'm not going to say that they all take it or that everybody does, but you know what? It's pretty prevalent in like the sports world. So you can go back. They did this great diagram of the Tour de France winners over like the past 10 years when Lance finally came out, and it was they were actually it wasn't he hadn't even come out yet, but they were talking about the doping thing, and you go through they had this little diagram, and all the players that were in black, they were in black and white, and then showed the players and their names, the riders and their names, and each one of the ones that were in black had been found guilty of either doping or having trace amounts, been accused, accusations, just all these different things related to doping. And these are the top 10 people over the past 10 years that were in the top 10 of the peloton in the Tour de France. And pretty much every single person in there was in black except for Lance Armstrong and like one other rider. Okay? And to me, that I'm like, okay, that's a pretty glaring thing right there, that that like pretty much all these dudes were doing we're pretty much all doing it, we're in on it. And for Lance to have gone and beat all of these people who were doping, and he beat them all, come on, bro. Like, we know you were doing it. I think everybody knew. I mean, wasn't it obvious? And the thing is he's still somebody I look up to, because you know what? He still did a lot of great things. Just because he cheated like everybody else in the peloton was. And I'm not saying that makes any of them any better than him or any worse than him. And I'm not saying cheating is a good thing, but they were basically all doing. People always talk about this level playing field. He was just on that level playing field. They were all on the same field. You know what I mean? So, but again, he's somebody I look up to for inspiration. Just like the same thing. When I see these movies, these actors, these actresses, these musicians and things like that, who are out there saying and doing these things, who are out there supposed to be representing people. It's for inspiration. It's not these people are my idols and I look up to them, because I realize all people are flawed. Who was my hero when I was growing up? Who I wanted to be like? It was my father. Okay, it was my father. It wasn't Spider-Man, or the fact that Spider-Man needs to look white or be white, or be half Mexican and half and German and Danish and Native American, and just all these. He didn't have to be like me. He's just a fictional character, somebody that I looked up to. You know what I mean? I didn't care that he was white. Like, if anything, the person who probably most closely represented me would have been what's his name in the movie La Bamba, Lou Diamond Phillips. You know what I mean? In the movie La Bamba, and just how that movie's all about. And you go back and watch that movie, how great of a movie that is. But that was one of even then, that was actually a movie that inspired me when I was a kid. And not just because he was some Hispanic kid who was out there trying to be an American and live in the American world and make a name for himself. It was just because it was a good story about a good musical artist who went out there and chased his dream, and he met a tragic end. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was closer to representing me. It just had to do with, I relate to everything that's going on in this movie as a well-written movie about a real person. And so I think that I think that's something that's huge, like a real, I don't know, something that's big. Like another thing, when I was growing up, I loved Motley Crue, and look at all them dudes. None of them dudes look nothing like me. But I loved them, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to I wanted to go out there and tour and, live like in this just like crazy world of drunken and drugged out debauchery. You know what I mean? Just, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, and again, these aren't people that I looked up to, like in the sense that, they are my heroes or anything like that. They just inspire me to go out and do things. And that's ultimately what it is. You can't look into these things so much and think like, oh, this is like this. I need this hero to represent me, to make me feel better about myself. But the thing is when you actually see somebody out there who is representative of you, you want them you want it to be you want it to be accurate at the least. At the least, you want it to be accurate, not just a stereotypical representation, because that's what gives everybody else out there that perception that that's how people are, how the people are like. And let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Nerd Mom says, as a woman who loves sci-fi, action, and fantasy, I was never bothered that Luke Skywalker didn't look like me or have lady bits. There are female heroes: Ripley, Sarah Connor, Jamie Lee Curtis's filmography. Um, but it's narcissism to demand fictional characters look like you, in my opinion. And I agree. I agree with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with, we can see people actually go out there and write characters for these specific reasons. They not all of them take and just race change or gender swap any of these popular characters. People go out there and they build their own lore. They build their own franchise or anything like that. And I think that's something that's very important. Whether we're talking about established franchises or not. Now, I will say the one thing, and I was talking about this the other day when it comes to comic books and like the indie comic books versus the mainstream ones, superheroes and stuff like that, is the indie comic book has it a little bit harder because you're trying to start something new. You're trying to start a new franchise, a new hero, and things like that. And it's going to be a little bit harder to get your footing and grab people and bring them into this lore and want to see it and be a part of it. You know what I mean? Because we have so many of these established characters already, these established franchises and things like that that we're already into and attached to. So it is kind of hard to get out there and build that new thing and get people that are into it and want to be invested into it. So I think it's a challenge. However, it's a challenge that should be embraced by a writer, by a director, by a producer, because that's the challenge. If everything was easy, is it worth doing? I mean, sure, it's great when things are easy, but yeah, I mean, you need to push yourself, especially if you're a writer and you want to be a good writer. You don't just take somebody else's work and just, toss it out the window and create your own thing. I mean, at least take their work and create something new. Let it give you new ideas to write a new character or somebody out there that can be representative of these people that feel underrepresented. I mean that's the ultimate thing is finding that challenge. And again, demanding these fictional characters look like somebody, it does seem a bit ridiculous. Like, come up with some new characters, and there's already plenty of established characters out there that represent all of these different people in the first place. So the fact, and I know that's what makes a lot of people upset. So the fact that people do the race changes or do the gender swaps and some of the stuff with these characters is really the bigger issue, because you're gonna make like the Captain Marvel movie, for example, and not put actual Marvel in there and just have Carol Danvers in there without even paying homage to Marvel. You basically just gender swapped a whole character and tossed one actual whole character's lore out the window. Okay, when you could have just actually went out there and done, you could have done any number of other movies of female characters that were already established. One of the things that Eric July talks about is, they want the female representation. Like with a black character and things like that. Like they obviously did Black Panther. Hey, they did pretty good with that. But then you look at Storm. You got Storm out there. You don't need to race change some sort of other character or anything like that to bring. You got Storm right there. So there's no reason to have to do that. We've had Black Widow for forever. So I get people's discontent when it comes like that. And before I move on to the next comment here, I am going to go ahead and welcome everybody into this chat. I see Aggressively Relaxing, Nathan Big Game, and even Tracy here. Thank you all so much for being to the stream. Again, I apologize for getting off to a late start here. I was having some problems. Just I think it was YouTube. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do? Is blame YouTube? Is YouTube? It was the algorithm. It was the algorithm. Speaking of the algorithm, make sure you give this video a like or a dislike. It helps the algorithm, right? It helps grow my channel. Yay! And you guys have been awesome in helping me grow this channel, being here, tuning in for these live streams. Again, I do appreciate it. And, another thing I wanted to do before I continue on, I guess you could say this is commercial, is I wanted to give a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I now have 4 of them. And let me go ahead and go over the people who are there, because I do have one of them definitely here in the chat right now, and that is Tracy Woody. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. Tracy has been a huge supporter of the channel here for quite a while. She's comments on a lot of the videos, likes them, shares them with her dog and even her unborn grandbaby. She's got it, like she's really been helping. Tracy, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. I do truly appreciate it. The next one I have is Jay Drunk 3PO. You guys, I see Drunk 3PO is here as well, or at least he was. And again, awesome guy, awesome channel. If you guys aren't Patreon supporters of his, you should go be his Patreon supporter because he's doing some awesome things with the people, with the money that his Patreon supporters are giving to him. He's doing awesome stuff. He's helping out some kids in El Salvador. They're building like I don't know necessarily like some housing, but just different things for them. I think it is housing and helping them get clothes and things like that. So I think he's doing something very good. So again, thank you, Jay Drunk 3PO. You guys should go check out his channel as well. The next one I have is Marty McFly Senior. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. I do appreciate it. He actually went with the roadie level tier on my Patreon supporters. So again, thank you, Marty. I actually asked him if there was anything in particular he'd like me to talk about and make a video about specifically for him to cater to him, and he gave me an idea, and it's something that I don't really know about, so I'm gonna have to go back and do some research on it. But I'm gonna get something done for him as well for his support. And then my newest supporter is Joseph Lennon. Again, thank you, Joseph. I do appreciate your support. And he actually gave me some feedback on a video that I already have posted up there for my Patreon supporters, and will soon be available for you all to watch if you are not a Patreon supporter. It's been up there for about a week now for you all to check out. So if you are a Patreon supporter, please make sure that you get on there, check out that video, and let me know your thoughts and let me know what you think. And again, Joseph, thank you for watching that video and letting me know your thoughts on it. Okay, now I am going to get in here and see what everyone has to say. Aggressively Relaxing says, I hate virtue signaling. Also, tokenism is racism if you are picking up my signal. And it is. I mean, it is. I can admit that. That's why I boycott Marvel. Also, check out my new review of an MCU film. I represent the average opinion. Smash that like. Yes, and again, it is. I mean, I can see what you're saying there. The virtue signaling and the tokenism is racism. And I get that. I get where people would say that because I mean, it's almost kind of like insulting. You know what I mean? Just like create a new character. It's like you can't just do that. Create the new character or use an existing established character already. And again, I'm not somebody who's like overly upset about these kinds of things because I realize, Hollywood, they're gonna do what they want to do no matter what we think. You know what I mean? There's a perpetual machine going on out there. It's just and that's just the media kind of, it doesn't necessarily control things, but it controls a lot of perception in the way people see the world. So yeah, I mean, I totally get that. Aggressively Relaxing says, Batman is blood doping. Oh, yeah, Batman got to be doping, man. I mean, look at that dude. He's a badass. Especially, man. Did you see? Is it just me? Am I the only person who's a Ben Affleck Batman lover? I loved his Batman. I wanted to see it. I love you, Ben Affleck. Please come back. It's too late. It's too late. I liked his Batman. I thought he looked good in the suit. I thought he looked pretty jacked. I thought he played the role pretty good. And I remember, I'm sure it was for that Batman role, seeing a picture of him, like on Facebook or Instagram or something when he was like all yoked up for it. I was like, holy crap, dude, he looked huge. And I don't know that he's necessarily. I mean, I don't think that he's a small dude in the first place, but like his frame, like he looked jacked, bro. I was like, damn. What is blood doping? I heard it before, but I forgot. Basically, what they do is they take and extract their own blood, and while it's got a high amount of, I want to say white blood cells in it. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. Maybe it's the red blood cells, but it's got a higher amount of what, like it carries more oxygen and things like that. Because that's really what the doping. A lot of people have misconceptions about doping and the drugs and things like that. And I don't really have enough time to get into that here. But basically, they take their old blood. They take old blood out of it, or blood out of them, and then they basically keep it refrigerated or whatnot. They have it stored, and then they put it, and then they just put it back in later because it's better blood. It's just, yeah, it's pretty gross. It's pretty gross if you think about it. I mean, it's really no different than a transfusion, a blood transfusion, but chances are when you're doing those kinds of things, it's out of a need and a necessity, not just for sports performance. Now, the thing that I think a lot of people get misconstrued when it comes to the doping and things like that is they think that it's like a performance enhancer, like you just, like you go out and say you regularly are sitting there curling 50-pound dumbbells that you're just going to go and shoot up some steroids, and you're going to go out there and you're all of a sudden going to be a beast. You're going to be pumping 75, 100-pound weights. That's not how it works. Pretty much, for the most part, what a lot of them do is they repair your cells faster, your muscles. It helps your body just build and repair itself, which is like, when it comes to cycling, is a huge thing, especially when it comes to like the grand tours where they're doing 21 days of nothing but riding, and they're out there going all out. The key thing, the most important thing for any of those kind of athletes doing something like that, is the rest and recovery. Because your body is under so much stress. You only got so many hours a day. You're riding, you're eating. You got to do all these things just right, to be able to perform your best for those 21 days. And it's not easy. It's hella not easy. And basically, when they go and do that, they don't do it like before the stage to go out there and like smash it, while they're out going up the hills. It's so they get good recovery, so their body recovers better, and their muscles are repaired faster. Just everything, just all their internal systems are just working, getting better rest. Because in case you've ever tried to start a new diet or anything like that, the most important part that people ever miss in a weight loss regimen, a new workout regimen, or anything like that, is rest. I can guarantee you there's a high amount of people out there that neglect the rest and relaxation that they need to properly build muscle, to perform at a maximum, or just even to go to your regular job, and be concentrated and just be on it all the time. You need proper rest. But yeah, blood doping, they're basically taking blood out and putting blood back in later. Yeah, and it's a pretty gross thing. Aggressively relaxing says artificially boosting your blood's ability to bring more oxygen to muscles by treating it and reintroducing it into your system. Exactly. I mean, he aggressively relaxing there knows exactly what the deal is. And rage against the perpetual machine. Yeah, and that's the thing, man. That's the thing, is the media controls so much. They're doing so much in these movies and things like that, that it does get to be a lot at times. Like you don't have to go out there, and it's just like I've said about some of the channels even that I follow here on YouTube. Is the thing is, like, you don't have to perpetuate everything. Like, if you don't like something, just say you don't like it and move on. If you bring it up in a conversation again, a regular conversation, but like I said, like, and people on here talk a lot about, like, oh, people don't like my Brie Larson videos, me bitching about Brie Larson, well, I'm gonna go make fucking 50 of them. Did I cuss on my, dang it, I cussed on my PG show. Like, I'm just gonna go make 50 of them because it gets clicks and all this stuff. Like, that's fine. Like, I get it. We're all trying to, chances are, if you're on YouTube making videos, you're trying to grow an audience, stuff like that, and you got to go with what works and what gets you clicks. But me, I'm just like, I don't need to watch 50 videos of you griping about the same thing. To me, it just seems a little childish. Move on. Just move on. Um, I guess it hurt him that much. I don't know. But yeah, and everything's just so perpetuated after. It's like, ugh. And then the media doesn't help when they have to go and run a story on this or that. And the thing is it's usually big publications, because there's all these other clickbaity things out there who are doing this stuff. Like, there's so many of these other clickbaity news sites out there. You got Bleeding Cool, Bleeding Fool. You got We Got This Covered. You got Collider. You got just all these different, Bounding Into Comics. What was also the Mary Sue, just all these different people. It's just like the regular news. You got MSNBC, Fox News, just all these different news outlets who are out there, just they're telling you what you want to hear from your point of view. Now the thing is, if you go through and you watch the point of view of this person, that person, people you agree with, people you don't agree with, cool, that's great. But again, all these people are still, they're it's just a vicious cycle, and all they're doing is perpetuating this same thing. It's just like, ugh, it gets to be too much. Like, I get discontent, and it's perfectly fine. Talk about it, if you want. That's fine. I talk plenty about being discontent with things here on my channel, but the thing is, like, just beating the dead horse with it. Just it gets to be much. Like, I'd rather talk about things I love, and things that and even if I don't like The Last Jedi, things that I like about Star Wars in general, to get other people to come into my fandom. The things that I like, I want to share that with them, what I love. and then let them tell me what they love. And if I don't agree with them, then I'll tell them like, well, okay, that's cool if you feel that way, but here's the way I feel about it, and here's why. Because I know I've talked about this before. You're not going to change somebody's mind by being a jerk about it. You're not. You know, it's understanding. Getting people to understand where you're coming from, getting them to understand your perspective and your point of view. That's what's going to change what we want to see in these movies, in these story writings and things like that, is understanding. Like, that person who's out there writing this story, like say this writer for the Black Widow movie, for example, saying, oh, okay, well, okay, I get what people are upset about now. I mean, are they going to? Probably not, but I mean, at least enlightening them to like why we are being critical, why we're disappointed, why we don't like this, why we don't like that, And the thing is most of the people out there, a lot of people out there, they might want to hear you. A lot of people listen to respond instead of listening to understand. You know what I mean? Just sit there and listen to what we're saying. It's not saying that you're going to run off and just change your writing and go change the whole script and be like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't do this. But maybe you could think about other people's feelings when it comes to stuff like that, and not just your own. And say, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to try to satisfy the people who built our franchises or built these things that we love, satisfy them, and and bring in some new people by way of maybe making a new character into these movies. Who says that in the MCU they can't give us a whole brand new character that we haven't even seen in the comics? They could. They do the same thing it's no different than writing a different character into the comics. Instead of taking the existing character and just completely changing them. Demonetized. Yeah, I'm not monetized anyway, so I guess it's all good. I don't care about stars' political views. I like them for their acting. I don't even like politicians. Politics are too polarizing for me even to touch them, and I feel the same way about it. I feel the same way about it. Politics, religion, very polarizing subjects. It's how you get a lot of dislikes and things like that. Broseph Russell, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're doing well, man. And man, I'm telling you, Broseph Russell, man, he's got a channel. You guys should go check him out. Does some excellent reviews and things. But man, he made this killer barbecue sauce for us one time. Man, that was some great barbecue sauce. We need some more of that, bro. We need some more of that. But yeah, when it comes to these stars and their political views, I don't care neither. I don't listen to them. I mean, for the most part, I will listen to what they have to say, one time and everything, because after that they're just mouth breathing and saying whatever. I don't have any problem listening to their position, but I'm not going to continually listen. And where I live at, I think it's kind of important. A lot of people where I even live at said, "Oh, screw these Hollywood stars and all this stuff. They don't care. I don't care what they think. They're full of crap." And blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing is like, bro, if you live where I live at, you should care, because I live in Los Angeles County. And a lot of these people do too. And some of them don't. Maybe they live in Ventura County or, some of these other counties around here close. But chances they got a lot of pull and a lot of influence here. So I should care. If you live here near me, you should care what they're saying. They're affecting your local government, your local politics and stuff like that. But for the most part, I don't care what they say. Whether I agree with them or disagree with them, I really don't care. I'm not... like you said, I'm there to watch their movies. I'm there to see their acting. I want to see their acting abilities. I don't care about their politics. But again, I don't ignore them neither. And if you have kids, you shouldn't ignore them neither, because these are the people that are influence your kids. They're the ones out there making the music, making the movies, making the headlines. Out there. So we need to care that much at least. And whether that means just safeguarding your kids from it if you don't like what's being said, or letting them be exposed to it and explaining what the situation is. Now, for the most part, kids don't really care about that kind of stuff. They're not really into all that, but it's something that it has to be done. I mean, it's no different than having talks about sex and things like that with your kids. It's important stuff. It's important stuff to learn. So I mean, so you at least put your values and things like that into your children and get them to and hopefully you can even if you're a bad person or anything like that, hopefully you can at least start with the new generation of people and at least try to raise a good kid, because us as adults, we're all jaded in the first place. You know what I mean? We're already pretty much set in our ways. You know what I mean? We're already bad. We've already been ruined but let's at least try to take the new generation and bring them up right, so they can be better than us, so they can learn that, all this virtue signaling, just all these different things going on, like they don't have to be like that. They can actually take and make new things that people love and want to take care of and things like that. You know what I mean? We can bring them up to do the things right. And that's where I think a lot of this stuff kind of comes into play. Um, but again, let's get back to some of the responses here. Characters, Nerd Mom on my post says characterization, plot, great storytelling are what I'm interested in entertainment. I didn't get angry that Mario is a male Italian plumber. I just saved the friggin' princess and enjoyed the game like a normal person, right? Yeah, and again, that comes down to you know. It doesn't matter like who the hero or the heroine is, and whether they look just like you. It's just, are they doing good things? Are they being a good person, doing noble things? And is that something you can look up to? You know what I mean? That's what it's more all about. Is it a great story? Lily K says representation is everything. I loved how Sue's sister, Glee, was portrayed by an actress with Down syndrome. I can't wait to see Peanut Butter Falcon for that matter too. One of my friend's little sister has Down syndrome and lights up when she sees someone like herself on screen. And again, I think that's actually something important too, and that's definitely something that is important when it comes to the representation thing. Is it needs to be done accurately and done by the people who are trying to be representative of. Like the perfect example is there with Down syndrome. And I can tell you, if you ever watched the movie The Accountant with Ben Affleck. Okay, I have a nephew who has Asperger's. My mom lives up there with my sister and her family and everything, and she helps out a lot with them. And she watched The Accountant and was like, "Oh wow, like this is actually a pretty decent portrayal of somebody with the Asperger's, and just and all that stuff." And she liked how it was done. She's like, "Man, it really, it's crazy because it really reminds me a lot how Will is." And so when it comes to certain things like that, it's very important to see how it is, because we've seen other people a lot, whether it's with Down syndrome or just any other kind of handicaps out there, on screen, and we've seen a lot of times it's done, maybe done in comedic ways or done for comedic purposes and things like that, or maybe they're just making fun of or different things like that. And I get a lot of people can find that offensive, and and that's fine. If people are going to be, it's not fine, but I mean that they're being offending people, but people are going to be offended by it, and you know what, just turn it off and don't watch it. Try to forget it. We all get beat up in our lives out there. Certainly don't need to be made a mockery of on screen. So I totally get it. And some people have been even talking about Quentin Tarantino and what he did for Bruce Lee in his recent movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the thing is like, you go watch the movie, you shouldn't be offended because Quentin Tarantino's doing revisionist history in this damn movie anyway. So the fact that he didn't accurately portray Bruce Lee was, and people would be offended by that. Like, they said his daughter, Bruce Lee's daughter, was a little bit upset by it. As like, I think most of us out there like Bruce Lee, love and respect Bruce Lee because he was such a badass and he did a lot of great things. I don't think, like somebody like me, I wasn't offended, but I just remember watching. I was like, all right, god dang, man, you gonna make Bruce Lee look like that? Like, all right, whatever. Like, whatever. I'm not offended, because then I realized that it's not an accurate portrayal, and this movie isn't a biopic on Bruce Lee or this particular actor in the movie, or any of these particular people that are in the movie at all. It's not meant to be that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that. When it comes to certain things, there should definitely be as accurate of representation as possible. Christian Paystrip says, "I think it's heavily important as someone with Asperger's. I've often found it slightly unpleasant when individuals with autism are only portrayed in dramas." And that's a good point. And the thing is I guess The Accountant. I mean, I guess that technically kind of counts as a drama, but again, my mother actually felt that in that movie, The Accountant, that it was pretty accurately portrayed in the way things happen throughout that movie. Now, going and being raised to be a hitman and all these different kinds of things. I mean, I'm not saying it's not anything that doesn't happen in the world, but I mean, I guess there's that. Black Angus Reviews. Um, I'm not sure if you guys know who Black Angus Reviews is or follow his channel, but he's quite the character, man. Black Angus Reviews says there's not enough representation of women in kitchens. Hashtag triggered. That's true. But you know what? While I do understand, and it's actually it's actually a good point. It's actually a good point. It's something else that I've talked about here on the show when people are talking about the representation of the LGBTQ community in these movies, and people talking about seeing it on screen, like in the Marvel movies or whatnot. Like this character's gonna be gay, that character's gonna be gay, and all that stuff. Now, if it's just said, hey, that's one thing, because when we watch these movies, we're not gonna see like we don't even see Tony Stark and Pepper Potts sitting there making out and making love and all this stuff in the movies. We don't even see that. So really, when it comes down to some of these things, like I know, like I get how people feel about it, but and it's fine if they overreact about it, but we're not gonna just see them on screen humping and just doing all these crazy, outrageous things. That's just not what they do in these movies. So they're made for kids essentially. So when it comes to that, it reminds me of something. Like I said, we don't typically see in movies people cooking a lot. We don't see them going to the bathroom. We don't see them in the bed making having sex or anything like that a lot. Just certain things we just don't see in movies. But there are exceptions out there. Like we did see in the movie About Schmidt, where Jack Nicholson's going to the restroom. His wife had just died. He's grieving and stuff like that. And grieving is a process, man. It really is. Let me tell you. But he's sitting there and he just starts whizzing all over the room. He's just showering the whole place down, and um, it's just one of those situations that we don't often see on screen. So it's not anything that really needs to be worried about. But now, if we're gonna take an accurate representation of my kitchen, it'd probably be about an equal representation of me and my wife in there cooking. I think we both do it kind of equally, kind of equally. And yes, my wife does cook for me and the family. She does, not out of obligation, but sometimes I can taste the obligation in the food. You can taste love in the food, man. And don't tell me that you can't, because I've tasted food that's been made with love before, and you can just taste it. You just cut that enchilada, and yes, I'm talking about something very specifically that happened recently. You cut that enchilada, and you take a bite of it, and you can taste the love in it. You can taste that whoever made this food was loving what they were doing, and they loved this food, and they were making it for people they love, and were making it for people to love, as opposed to just the other day when I had some enchiladas that no, not my wife cooked, and I was tasting it, and I'm like, hey, man, there's no love in this. I'm sitting there eating it, and my mother's sorry, Mom, I just threw you under the bus. But I'm sitting there eating it and cutting into it, and I'm eating it. I'm like, you didn't cook this with love, Ma. This was cooked out of obligation. I can taste the obligation in this food. You don't have to feel obligated to make this for us. You're getting ready to go out of town, go for a trip. You don't have to do all this, because I can taste the obligation in this enchilada. I can taste it. I can taste the obligation. She goes, no, I didn't feel obligated. It wasn't. I'm like, this food was cooked with obligation in it, not love. I can taste it. I can taste it. And don't think I'm crazy here, man. I'm telling you, it's true. You can taste the love in the food. So yeah, I do get what Black Angus is saying there. And Mad's Mama Bear, another great supporter of the channel here. She always comes in on the live streams and all of our live streams, and she's always great in there. Mad's Mama Bear says, ironically, when I was working as a chef, I was regularly told it's a guy's industry. And I think that's true. Like I think like cooking in general, it seems to be more of a male-driven thing. Just how it's not all like that, but I do notice there are a lot of male cooks, like me. Like my wife cooks, I cook, but there's sometimes when she's like, oh, why don't you cook it, you just make it so much better. And like there's times I tell her, I'm like, I just do exactly what the recipe says. That's it, just exactly like the recipe says. That's all I do. It's exactly what it says right there. But sometimes, and I've even done it before, I'm sure too, I've made things out of obligation, and you can taste it in the food. So yeah, um, yeah, it is. I mean, that's all the comments I got for my representation video today. But Let's see. Bruce Russell says, "Yeah, too much drama." Nathan Big Game says, "Some super liberal agendas I do pay attention to, bro. Like normalization of pedophilia and stuff like that. Trying to include it with LGBTQ to sneak it in, claiming it's a way people are born." And I'm not trying to get controversial here on the show like that, but you're absolutely right. The pedophilia thing, it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening, absolutely sickening. And you know as well as I do, I feel very strongly about that those kinds of issues. And that's the thing, is a lot of it's normalized. And I've even heard seen people out there when they talk about some of these kinds of things, like making these things, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not making excuses," but they're like, most people who are abusers were abused as children. And yeah, okay. To me, that just sounds like you're trying to make an excuse. There is no excuse, especially if they were abused too, because they know, But maybe, maybe, in their cognitive dissonance, if you will, don't realize that what they are doing is bad when they're victimizing somebody else. Yeah, sure, but that's by no means gonna be an excuse. It's not an excuse. I don't care that you were abused as a child. That doesn't mean you go out and abuse other children. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't justify it. It's just not how it works. And unfortunately, what you're saying there, I do totally agree with that. That's it is normalized through that. And there are people out there trying to normalize pedophilia, and it's not right. It's not anything that I can agree with or anything like that. I actually, have you ever watched the movie The Woodsman? Have you ever watched the movie? I think that was the name of it, The Woodsman, with Kevin Bacon, where he was released from prison, and why he was in there and everything like that. He was a pedophile and got found guilty and all these things. And he came out and he was just trying to make a normal life for himself. He was. And you could see throughout the movie, he was still being pulled in that direction. He was still being tempted. And in the end, he actually went through and helped a kid who was being preyed upon, and actually went after somebody who was, going to abuse children. He went after an abuser. And the thing is like, I was so, I need to go back and do a review on that movie, because I'm so divided on that movie, on something like that, because it's normalizing it, and it's making it sympathetic. And saying that, oh, hey, people can change and things like that. And true, people can change. But, it's kind of like this is the same thing I said about, like, in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Okay, one good deed doesn't doesn't wipe away all the other bad deeds. It doesn't. You know what I mean? There is no making up for it. Like we see all these this thing going on with Epstein in the news. He's recently obviously caught for running this huge, like, child trafficking ring, pedophilia, just all these things that were involved with it, and knows all these huge players. And then he recently like was found dead, committed suicide or whatnot. I'm not trying to get political here. Now the thing about it is there's no excuse for it. There is no way back from that. There is no justice for the victims. Okay, this guy dying, it's not a good thing. He could have implicated other people out there who were part of it. Okay, and that's the thing. And even if we take down a Jeff Epstein and every single one of his clients and every single person he ever worked with, and we took all of them and we sentenced them to death, say they all got the chair or they all got publicly hanged or anything like that, it does absolutely nothing, not one thing for the victims, other than knowing that this person isn't going to be out there to victimize another person. But you know what? To these people who have been abused, I've been abused. I'm a victim myself. The thing is there is no justice out there that can be done. The damage is already done. Okay, so these people being sentenced to death or anything like that, all these atrocious things happening to them, it does it does no real justice. There is justice done in the fact that these people can't harm people anymore and things like that. And that's the bad thing about this Epstein thing, is he could have actually implicated more people. He could have brought down more people. And obviously this is the kind of turd that wasn't going to. But the thing is in the end, there's still no real justice that can be done for the victim. If you ask me, maybe there's other people out there that feel differently about it, but if you ask me, that's the way I feel about it. I have been victimized myself. So for me, and that's the one way I always feel about it is there is no justice out there that can be had. If I go to my abuser and I beat the shit out of him, say I kill the dude, okay, I might feel a little bit better, feel like I got some vengeance or something, but it doesn't change the fact that the abuse has been done. There's no amount of justice. And if there was going to be justice, I don't want to see it be done by him just being found guilty in a court of law and going to jail and all that stuff, because the person who did it, jail doesn't work for. I know this. Would I feel better if he was dead? Yeah, maybe. I might feel better. But is it justice? No, it's not justice. It's just his death is justified because he's a turd. And that's really all there is to that. And like I said, I wasn't trying to get too political in here, but yeah, and the normalization of it all, and that's the bad thing about some of these movies. Maybe people don't see it, and the people in the LGBT community, maybe they don't see that. Maybe they don't see it. Maybe that their intentions, and my mother always says the path to hell is paved with good intentions. They may have started off with good intentions, but everything that compiles on top of that is wherein lies a problem. Because next thing are you fighting for the right thing? Things blow up. They get out of our control and they go into a tailspin. And next thing you know, you're sitting there not really knowing what's going on. So again, it is a dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to walk, and it's a dangerous line. It's a dangerous line there, definitely. Yeah, those types I hear and wish death upon. Yeah, and yes. And I agree 100%. Aggressively relaxing says most people who are upset about what they call SJW issues seem to coincidentally find them in whatever media is most popular, and that is the absolute truth. I agree 100% with you there. Aggressively relaxing. When you're looking for something, you seek it out. A lot of us, it's funny because I was listening to this podcast this morning. And it was more about health related stuff. But when you're looking for something like, say, the ketogenic diet, when you're looking for that and you're against it, you're seeking out stuff only to validate your point of view. You're not looking for things necessarily that are going to change your mind or help change your perspective on it. You're looking for those certain things, and you can find them. If that's what you're looking for, you'll find it. That's what you'll see in it. Even if it's something that's not saying what you want, what backs up your opinion, that's what you're looking for, and you will find it. You're seeking that out. So yeah, agreed. And to me, when it comes to the SJW thing, I mean, you got all these people who are, the social justice warriors, and you got the anti-social justice warriors out there. And to me, I just say, aren't you really just kind of the mirror version of each other? I mean, you both got SJW in your name. Yeah, SJW. That's why I said it. W. And that's the thing is, we can see the rational people out there who are against these types of agenda pushing and stuff like that. There are rational people out there who are against it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's just that it's so loud on this side and so loud on that side. And to me, I'm sitting there like, can y'all just like get over yourselves and kiss and make sweet love to one another? Because to me, it sounds like you guys are just like hurting for it, just begging for it. You can't just be a little bit rational about the whole thing and just be like, okay, let's be a little bit realistic here. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's just kind of how I feel about it. Nathan Big Game says, all the more reason to protect the next generation to stop the cycle. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why we've got to bring these things to the forefront and make sure that people are aware about it, and be out there, be that voice, be that sane, rational voice out there who's saying, hey, man, this isn't right. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. People out there who think that trying to normalize pedophilia and everything. And I know there's what is that? I'm not sure. Are they still around? I'm sure they are. These organizations don't go away. NAMBLA, the National American Man Boy Love Association, or whatever that is. I remember hearing about us. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not how it is. And I don't care who it is, or anything like that. I'm not gonna look at that as something to be normalized. It's not normal, and it's not okay. So again, man, see, I feel like I've completely gone off subject here and gotten a little political thing. Ah, but that's why we're here, because it involves our movies, it involves our entertainment and things like that. Now, a lot of people out there when it comes to like the political agendas and stuff, and that's not what we're here talking about, but it's kind of interconnected. People talk about like I go to see these movies for escapism and all that kinds of stuff. Um, mm, yeah, sure, I hear that argument, I hear it, but at the same time, I mean, all these movies aren't necessarily escapism. Some of them are to draw allegories or these parallels to our reality, and maybe to hopefully get you to see the error in your ways or your judgment or just the way you think. Maybe help change it, your perspective a little bit, to get you to maybe think more about others or make you see something inherently wrong with something. And I think a lot of times that's important. My bad, bro. No, no, you're all good, man. You're all good, because it's still interrelated. These things are still interrelated to these movies and the representation of what's going on in them. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. And I haven't really gone off the deep end in politics here. These are just personal feelings of mine and personal feelings of yours. And there's we're free to have these feelings, because like stuff like that is not right. It's just not right. And I will actually take no part in normalizing pedophilia and things like that. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. I don't. Anybody who can actually sit there and look you in the face and tell you seriously that there's nothing wrong with pedophilia or anything like that, and but you know what? Look that person in the eyes. You know what I mean? Look them in their soul. Look at their look at them, and you will see. I'm telling you, you will see they know they're wrong. They know they're trying to do something wrong. You can see it. You can see it. And that's the thing, like some people aren't as attuned to things like that, making those kind of judgment calls and things like that. And that, unfortunately, is where the naivety sets with a lot of people. Is some people don't get it, and that's why it's those people like that who don't understand it and don't see it. Those are the kind of people that we need to bring in and be like, hey, whoa, like look, you're being like easily influenced here and everything, and that's not what they're saying. Like, yeah, but no, that's not good. We got, and that's the thing, is we got to get rid of that in the world, that naivety towards it, towards these types of things. So it's not normalized. So people don't find it acceptable. Some of these things, because some of these, like, I don't care what you say about pedophilia or anything. You could church whatever up you want to. I am never going to see it as an okay thing. And again, like I said, we've seen it in that movie, The Woodsman, where it's they didn't normalize it and they didn't make it like a bad thing. It was just a story, and that's why I'm saying, like the movie itself was really good, but you can even see this guy in his life, even his own family don't trust him, and that's something perfectly normal that happens. But we can see throughout the course of the story, this guy is trying to move on and go about his life, but he's still tempted. He's still tempted by these things, and um, it was a really great movie, just in those senses. But it left me with that odd feeling, like I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'm not sure how I feel about this movie, because it's like it's not necessarily normalizing, but I mean, just everything that it was showing, and it's like, I get it. People can change, but some things, no matter what you change, they're just not right. They're just not right. Whether the guy feels justified or anything like that, he goes out and does one good deed. It doesn't erase away all these other things. But again, I think that's probably something that was actually accurately portrayed. The representation of those of a pedophile was probably accurately portrayed in that movie, and that's exactly what we're here talking about today. Is these things actually being accurately represented in the movies, TV shows, and just our entertainment. I think it is something important. And like I was saying about this thing in China with the Shang-Chi thing, it's going to be highly important for this movie, for the MCU to do good over there, because it's their first Chinese character that they're putting into these movies and things like that. So I think it's highly important that they if we've already seen, just like with that video that I told you about, it's there in the description, you can see people already aren't on board with this guy's looks. Some of the Chinese population isn't on board with how this guy represents them. So I think it's going to be a hugely important thing for the MCU. Is like, okay, so they're not satisfied with his looks. We need to do everything else we can to accurately portray um, the Chinese people and this character, because this I'm pretty sure this character wasn't actually originally thought up by somebody of Asian descent who is Chinese and all these kinds of things. And that's not to say that the person who wrote it is a racist or has absolutely no clue or anything like that. They were just writing a comic book hero, a story, a fictional character. But the mere fact that this is what the MCU has been trying to do is get that representation in there and being accurate about things like that. I think it's something that's going to be highly important for this movie when it comes out, and and going forward, really, is making sure that they're actually accurately as close as possible to representing these people, because like I said, a lot of the times we see these things, you go out and you see all these portrayals in movies of how a particular race or of people are, and then you get out into the real world and you meet somebody like that and you're like, oh wow, like this person's not like that at all. Just like when I hear people say this thing, oh, this is a good one. Like when I hear some people say this, and you can obviously see I'm not black, but I've got plenty of friends who are, and then you see somebody say to them like, "Man, you know what? Like you're not like any other black person I've ever met." And it's like, what's that mean? Like what? Like is there a certain way that they have to be? Like again, it comes down to a stereotype. And that's why I think that these things being accurately represented is important. You know what I mean? Because I see people all the time. People online all the time. People like, oh man, this guy's making all us Mexicans look bad. Same thing with black people. Oh man, this dude is making all us black people look bad. Same with white people. Oh man, like this dude is making all us white people look bad. You know what I mean? It's out there everywhere. There's bad representation for all of our races out there. You know what I mean? But it just it always strikes me odd when I hear people say, and I've heard people say things like that. I'm like, man, you're not like any of the other black dudes I've ever met, or you're not like all these other black dudes, or anything like that, or all these other Mexicans. It's like, what? Like, all what ones? Like, all what ones are you talking about? I'm missing something here, and I don't know. It's just an odd thing. So I think there's definitely valid reasons out there why people should be accurately represented in these movies. And again, that comes to actual portrayals and things like that, and not just taking in race changing or gender swapping these characters from the comic books, because they probably weren't originally written to be that way. So that character, it's hard to rewrite them to represent a certain whether ethnic group or minority group or anything like that, if it's not a character that was already that way. So then you're actually completely changing the character, this character and who they are to fit this movie or whatever, and then it just kind of throws everything else off. Maybe it throws off the mythos or the lore of these particular characters, this particular franchise, or anything like that. And not only that, but then even the perception of the population out there of how people perceive these certain people to be. So again, I think it's something that's very important, and I can see here just by the responses on Twitter, that people do take it as a serious thing, and I think it's something that definitely these writers and these studios need to take a little bit more into consideration. Is just because you're doing something that's 50% accurate doesn't make it 100% accurate. And are they ever going to be able to get things 100% accurate? Probably not. And you know why? Because we're all different. Because every single person out there is different. So, you can still get the representation out there a lot closer to accurate than just doing things all willy nilly and be like, oh hey, we got a black guy on there now, and that's just how it works. We got him in there represented. Woohoo! You know what I mean? You still got to accurately represent it. So, and I think it's something that's very important in these movies, whether it's and even the comic books, and just any of these other different art forms that we all love and enjoy taking part in. So, I think it's definitely something. If you guys have any other comments about this, please feel free to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or even Instagram. Let me know your thoughts. Come back to this video later, rewatch it, share it with a friend, and let them know. Get down in the comments and leave how your feelings are. Let me know how you feel. I'm not one of these people out there who wants to ever live in an echo chamber. I want to hear opposing point of views. I want to hear people who agree with me. I want to hear people who are just kind of on the fence, like yeah, yes, no. I need to hear it all. I need your guys' input. You know what? Everybody needs you guys' input. But the thing is, when we're giving our input, you know, providing that for people, we got to remember that we got to address these things and talk about them in a sane and logical way. Because I see it all too much. People go out there who just want to convince other people of their ways and things like that, and not hear the other person's way or their argument or anything like that. Just want to shut everybody out and let their opinion be heard, and that's it. It's never about it's not never, but it's not more about understanding as it is opposed to just I want to let my opinion be heard. So yeah, again, thank you all for being here. The weekly rant, thank you for being here, man. Got here a little late, but it's all good. I don't know, maybe you've been watching the whole time and you're just now starting to comment. But thank you for being here. And I actually did go through and read some of your comments here on the show from the question that I asked yesterday. And if you guys haven't checked out the weekly rant, go to his channel and check him out. He's got a pretty good channel. Talks just doing some movie reviews and just different things like that. I of course met him through the great Ryan over at Nerdy Blurb TV. And if you guys don't know Nerdy Blurb TV, there should be a link down there as well. You should go check his channel out. Does a hell of a lot of good things for the nerdy community. Absolutely love that dude Ryan over there. He's awesome. The weekly rant says, I think changing the character depends on if their original state was integral to the story. And I can agree with that. Just like the whole Blade Muslim thing, that's actually just a fake rumor because some guy with 40 Twitter followers went and made a tweet and everybody ran with it. And I think in most of these stories, it's not an inherent part of the story at all. So I think a lot of times that's kind of why I feel like it doesn't need to be done, or doesn't need to be changed, or need to be said. Just like with the LGBTQ representation, you don't just have to say that somebody is lesbian, gay, bi, or trans in these movies just to to check a box. I think that because for the most part, these things aren't inherently important to any of the stories in most cases in the first place, unless it's a particular property where it is. So yeah, I mean, if it's not integral to the part of the story, I don't really see it as a big deal. But I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people do because they grew up with some of these franchises, these characters, and things like that. So I mean, I get people's discontent with it as well. I mean, I kind of see both sides. I feel more one way than I do the other, though, for sure. The world is very different now, and people are more equal. So films and TV should mirror that. And while I agree with you, I will tell you that their equality is bullshit. It's just an imaginary thing. Equality is not real. Equality is an illusion, is what I like to call it. Equality is an illusion because none of us are equal. None of us are equal. If we were all equal, I could be as smart as Stephen Hawking and be as buff as The Rock. You know what I mean? We're not all equal. We're not even close to it. There are people out there who are a lot smaller and have a lot more superior intellect to me. You know what I mean? So the equality thing, I mean, it's just out the window if you ask me. That's just my opinion on the whole equality thing. Is like I said, none of us are equal, and that's a good thing though. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as the stories aren't impacted by it. And again, yeah, I agree. The story shouldn't have to change because you just want to change a particular character. Nerdy Blurb TV is real. Yes, man, I'm telling you, yeah, Nerdy Blurb TV is so awesome, man. Love that dude to death. One of these days, I'm going to meet Ryan from Nerdy Blurb TV, and I've already said this. I'm going to go up to him, I'm going to give him a big old hug. Not like I wanted to make sweet love to him hug, but just a hug, and just, because that dude is awesome, man. Love that guy to death. Thanks for the call out, man. Yeah, no problem, man. Like I said, you got a good channel. You're a cool dude, man, and I can tell that you're a great guy just by going to your channel and seeing you and interacting with you what little I have between the channel and even on YouTube. And I think I've kind of shown that to you, man, because that guy who was just wanting to just keep coming at you for your point of view the other day, man. I'm just like, bro, like, not everybody has to agree with you, bro. And you're being a jerk to this dude, and he don't agree with you. So it's pointless to be a jerk. It's pointless to be a jerk about it. So just stop. Just stop. It's okay. It's okay for people to have different points of view than you do, to feel differently than you do. That's okay. That's what makes us human. It is. But just try just a little bit of understanding. A little bit. Um Haha, later, Nathan Big Game. Thanks for being here again, man. I do appreciate it. And the Weekly Rant says, "Hi, I suppose you are right from that point of view." And yeah, and like I said, I try to look at things that from a bunch of different point of views, and that's why and people have said that about me a lot. Just through Twitter, here on YouTube, and things like that. Is I've got a different point of view, and I do. I mean, I guess I've got a different point of view. I mean, we all do though. But I think my point of view more comes from wanting to know and understand people. I've always been a people watcher, people observer, and things like that. And I don't want anything bad for anybody out there. I don't want people to have to be treated like trash for no reason, or even for good reason. You know what I mean? I just try. I always try to come from a place of understanding, even if I don't agree with somebody. And that's that to me. That's just something I think a little more people could use a little bit more of. Like even if like I don't know, like tolerance and things like that. People can be tolerant and not be accepting. You know what I mean? Just be tolerant at least. That's all you have to be. You don't have to accept somebody's lifestyle or somebody's opinion or anything like that, but at least, be somewhat tolerant of it. If it's something that's reasonable of being tolerant about, like we were talking about pedophilia earlier, yeah, no tolerance there. Zero tolerance. Yeah, and speaking of which, if you guys kind of feel the same way about those kind of things, people who prey on children, you should definitely check down in the description, not only for my Patreon, but go follow Vigilantes for Children, and go check them out, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or even, well, I don't think they got a Twitter, but even check them out on Instagram, and just check out what they're doing good things by trying to bring awareness to the world for our children, looking out for the well-being of children. That's all I have for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel and for this sort of movie chat about representation in these films and these things that we love. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in to the Second Street Marvel today. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.